Hi everyone, it's Miriam from Miriam's Nature. Today I'm going to show you some inexpensive, often free tools you may already have in the house that can help you easily embellish, enhance, or add details to your fluid paintings. I'm going to be using them with acrylics in this demo just for the sake of an easy cleanup when I'm done. But the majority of these tools can be used for fluid painting with both acrylics or resin. So regardless of which medium you use, you may get some good ideas. So go grab some pencil and paper to take notes, and let's make some art. So to start with, I have a white tile with white paint poured out on top of it. And let's say that we add a little bit of a dirty pour. So I've mixed a little baby dirty pour for this. And we pour, and we think, oh, that's pretty, but we want to do a little something extra. So what could you use? Well, one of the first things you can use is the ever-present popsicle stick. We all have these. We use them for mixing, and they also make a great painting tool. Oh, by the way, here's a bonus tip. Cut your sticks in half if you're using them for mixing in small cups. I use these little medicine cups for a lot of my paint mixing because they already have marks for me to know how much I'm adding of everything. And if I use a long stick and put it in the cup, and then I have a bunch of cups sitting next to me on my table, these long sticks are an accident waiting to happen. You're gonna knock one over. But if you cut your sticks in half and you're only using a short stick in your cup, they're a lot more stable. You save some money and some trees, and you minimize your accidents. And an easy way to cut them is just take a plier, figure out where the half point is. You're just going to score it with the plier. You're not going to be able to really cut it with this very well. After you've scored it, just snap and you're good to go. Okay, now back to painting. So you've got your little pour and you're watching it and you're thinking, well, I want to do some stuff. You can definitely do tilting, but we're not going to tilt today. We're just going to play with tools. So I might want to use this to maybe drag some paint into different places. So your popsicle stick comes in handy for that sort of thing. Now for finer details, chopsticks and bamboo shish kebab skewers like this are awesome. And they usually come in all different sizes. You can use either the pointy end or the opposite end, depending on how big or how fine of a detail you want to make. Now remember, one thing to keep in mind is if you're going to use these on a canvas and you're using the pointy end, remember to be gentle because these are sharp and you don't want to poke through your canvas. But for using them for details, I'm going to use the super fine one now. You really can do some delicate little lines. Really beautiful little tendril-y type things with a pointy end. That would be really hard to achieve with something bulky like a popsicle stick. You can also use these to deposit little dots of paint in certain places. So I'm going to dunk this into some green paint. Well, let's say I wish there was a green dot right here. Well, then I can put a green dot right there. This is super easy to do. Just load up the end with some paint and let gravity work for you. I'm going to do it with a darker color just in case it's not so easy to see. So I can just set dots down wherever I want very easily with the end of a stick. Now, when you start using tools like this, something that's really handy to have nearby is a damp rag, a sponge, damp paper towels, because you might want to wipe your tools off as you're working. So that's handy. Now, for adding larger quantities of paint that might be tricky to do with a skewer or a popsicle stick, and you really want to be very particular about how much you put and where you put it, some really handy tools for that are these little squeeze bottles. You can find these at craft stores. They have caps and a tip that you can open at the end. They come with a closed tip. Don't cut your tip. Use a needle, a thick needle, a thumbtack to open the end. It'll give you a finer hole, and if you realize you want a much bigger hole, okay, well then cut it. Because once you cut it, you can't make it smaller, but if you poke it, and you can kind of get a feel for that, and you may love the small hole better. And then when you're not using this, they've got this lovely cap that fits snugly back on top. You can also use sort of really large syringes. This is a 10 cc or 10 milliliter syringe. This will hold a decent amount of paint and is fairly easy to control. But my absolute favorite thing to use when I'm going to be adding a larger amount of paint are pipettes. And these are easy to get on eBay. You can probably find them in drugstores too. I've never really tried, but on eBay you can get these for about 2 cents a piece, sometimes even less, and that includes the shipping. This is a 2, maybe 3 milliliter size. I know I've seen them 3 milliliter and 1 milliliter. Those are the sizes that are going to be the most useful for us. There are some that are 0.2, 0.5, don't get those. The hole is so small that it's really not usable for resin or paint like we're using. 2, 1, and 3, those are the good sizes for us. And so let's say I want to add, I'm thinking, I wish I had some more green, I don't know, here. So I just squeeze the pipette, the ball of the pipette, and that draws paint up into it. And then now I can squeeze to add more to the painting as I want. I can control the amount that I'm pouring and where I'm pouring by squeezing the ball and moving the end of the pipette. Another way that you can move paint around or resin is to blow on it. And you can use things like straws or tubing. Now, if you're going to use straws, I like the kind that has a bendy end. And the reason is because now with the bendy end, you can blow from this end and you can direct where you're blowing with this end. For the same reason, tubing is awesome. It's super flexible, and I got this off my fish tank. The advantage of this too is that you can cut this to almost any length you want. So if you're working on a large canvas, you can safely aim the blowing end pretty far into your work area. And different inner diameters will give you different options for how you blow. So a smaller diameter like this skinny tube here will give me a finer point for blowing. And I'll show you what I mean. If I'm going to blow a large amount, I'll use a thicker tube. But if I want a very fine little blow, this is a better option. It gives me more control and a very fine little point to aim. Now, obviously, one of the best known things to move paint around are paintbrushes. And they come in all different shapes and sizes, all widths. For these, I'd recommend the cheapest you can find. We're not painting with them in the traditional sense, so you don't really want to use good quality ones for this kind of thing. We're just going to be pushing paint around, so ultra cheap ones are just fine. And I wouldn't use paintbrushes in resin because that's really just trash that you're about to create, because once you use them in resin, you pretty much have to toss it. There is no getting the resin out of the paintbrush. And that's true of pipettes and syringes as well. Those, if you're going to use them for resin, consider those disposable. The beauty of the pipettes, they're ultra cheap, but I would skip the squeeze bottle with resin. What's nice about paintbrushes is they're great for moving paint onto the side. You know how sometimes you need to kind of run paint along the side of your canvas or your tile. Paintbrushes are a little easier than like a popsicle stick because they're more flexible and they can also hold a nice amount of paint while you're trying to move things around. So for that reason, I like paintbrushes for certain tasks. For doing a little bit of a swipe, this is called a fan brush. These are nice. They have a very delicate touch, so you really can see what you're doing and be very gentle with them in a way that might be easier to manage than, again, a popsicle stick or something else. In a pinch, Q-tips are awesome. Usually you'd be concerned because they've got like loose little fibers, but if you take them between your finger and you spin them and tighten the fibers, you can make them a little bit more user-friendly and sort of wind all the fibers back on. And they can hold paint for you, they can hold resin for you. So if you don't have paintbrushes, you probably have Q-tips. The next practically freebie tool, plastic cutlery. You have to have these in your studio for all sorts of reasons. Spoons, great for mixing. Also great for scooping large quantities of resin, large quantities of paint that you may need to drizzle on something. Plastic knives, awesome for mixing. And because they're plastic, they are reusable and definitely tree friendly. And the same things that you can use the popsicle stick for in terms of dragging paint, you can do with a plastic knife. And you can really do it with a plastic fork, because this is going to give you a couple of fingers to drag through the paint. And this is how marbling is done. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. How cool is that? And that happens with a fork. Get forks. Do this. I really wanted to zoom in on this so that you could really see how amazing working with a fork is. Watch. Because what you're doing is you're getting 4 or 5, if depending on your fork, parallel lines working at the same time. And it's such a pretty effect. Now, I know some of you are thinking, wait, don't do too much and ruin the painting. But this is just a scrap tile for me to show you these things. So now don't scream, because I'm going to wipe it all off and set up paints on this tile for a swipe. And I'm going to swipe with white paint. So my last favorite tool is acetate, clear acetate. And what I like about it is it's easy to cut, so you can cut it to the size you need. This is a small tile, so I only need a small piece. So I've cut a piece that'll do me. And I'm gonna swipe with this. And the reason I love swiping with this is I can see what I'm doing, as opposed to swiping with paper, cardboard, palette knives. This lets me see exactly what I'm doing. And if you cut it and hold it low enough, it's as stiff as you need it to be. So I'm going to just let it sit in the white and drag across. And I can see how much I'm dragging and what is going to happen and won't happen. This gives me more control over what I'm doing. So there you have a list of inexpensive, almost free things that you probably already have that you can use to play with your paints and your resin. Now, this list is far from exhaustive. This was just to get you started. You may have lots of other ideas for things that are useful, and I'm guessing that you're going to start looking around your house and things in a whole new way. If you do come up with other ideas, please share them in the comments below so that they can help others too. If we come up with a good long list, I'll be sure to make another video for you. As always, if you enjoyed this, please share it with your friends or any social media groups you belong to. It would help so much. And I truly appreciate a thumbs up, and I encourage you to subscribe. There's lots more to come, and I'd love for you to learn and get as much out of your creative nature as possible. I hope the paints and the resin are kind to you. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye now.